What's up, a Cinema Shogun here, and today is day 6 of the Johnny Depp and AH trial. However, it is just day 2 of Johnny Depp's testimony. And to be clear, I see Johnny Depp going on with his testimony for at least another 2 to 3 days. And I know yesterday and this morning, some people were complaining that it was boring and it was drawn out, but I'm here for it. I am here to hear what Johnny Depp has to say. We have been waiting for this moment for years, and you gotta know that Johnny Depp has been patiently waiting to get his story heard. This whole trial, regardless if Johnny wins or not, the point of this trial, I believe, is for Johnny's voice to be heard. And damn, Johnny's voice is being heard today. And the testimony that he has given so far today has just been extremely heartbreaking. I took some notes. I know a lot of you all are working and you don't have 6, 7, 8 hours to sit in front of a TV and listen to everything that is said. So I did compile some notes for you all. And of course, I have some reactions to some of the things that were said. But it basically started out with Johnny talking about how he was always wrong. No matter what he did, he was always wrong. And not just little actions, literally like what he did in his career, how he raised his kids. He was always wrong in Amber Heard's eyes. And, you know, he didn't understand how after working for over 30 years in his career, how everything he was doing was wrong. He didn't understand that how he managed to live 50-something years and somehow everything he did was wrong. Yet it seems as if he somewhat believed it. He allowed AH to manipulate him to the point where he believed that maybe everything he was doing was wrong. He started questioning himself, well, maybe everything that I thought I knew was actually wrong. Maybe the ways that I've been going about handling my career, acting, raising my kids, maybe it's all wrong. When in reality, it hasn't been. But that's just the type of person AH is. She has to bring you down. She has to belittle you. She has to bring you to the point where you just feel like you are completely nothing. You are nothing without her. That's the type of person that she is. And Johnny would often have to hide in the bathroom from her. The bathroom is like one of Johnny's sanctuaries. At least that's the way it seems after today's testimony. Because often he would have to separate himself, and the bathroom would be one of the main places he would go. Because it's a place where he could lock himself in there. You know, you got your toilet, you got a floor, and he would literally sleep on the floor in the bathroom. Here's this guy, a millionaire, that could be sleeping in the fanciest mansions, the nicest beds, the fluffiest pillows. Yet he spent many of nights, many a days, sleeping in the bathroom. In fact, on one of these flights, Amber was harassing him, poking at him, which he said poking at him meant both physically and verbally. And to the point that he separated himself and slept in the airplane bathroom on the floor for the entire flight. So I just think that's disgusting that every step of the way, Johnny keeps trying to separate himself from these situations. And he's saying that's something that he's done since a kid. Since a child, he learned to separate himself from these types of situations, from violence, from conflict. And he explained that Amber, however, had a need for conflict. It was almost as if she had a need for conflict and violence. Like she couldn't go about her whole day being happy. She had to have some type of conflict in her life for her to feel complete. And where there were no conflicts, she would create conflict. She would make mountains out of molehills. She would be controlling to the point where you couldn't do everything that she wanted. You could never do everything Amber wanted to make her happy. And like he explained earlier, everything he did was wrong, even when it was right. So she would just create conflicts out of nowhere because she had a need for that. And he would do his best to separate himself. And she would follow him every step of the way. And when he tried to separate himself, she would strike out physically, slaps, shoves, throwing TV remotes at his head, wine bottles, throwing drinks on him, you name it. So it's not like he was just, I could walk away, we could cool down. He was never, half the time, he wasn't allowed to leave because she would follow him and attack him. And even when he would take it one step further, and it would go further than just, I'm going to separate myself in a different room. When he would bring up leaving her, she would threaten to hurt herself. She would talk about how she couldn't be without him. And she would cling to him. And it's crazy to me that this woman who wants us to believe that Johnny is such a monster seems to be clinging to him like glue. If someone's such a monster that you need to get away from them, and they actively try to get away from you 24/7, yet you still insert yourself wherever they're at, then who's the real monster? I've never heard of a monster that just beats on women that separates himself from every argument. And like you literally have to follow him throughout the house, room to room to room, throwing things at him to get him to engage in the argument. So she just had this constant need for violence. And she would more often than not, get physical. And he explained that over time, it went from her being like his girl. Like the first year, a year and a half, everything seemed to be okay. And she was his girl. But she grew from being his girl to being his opponent. To where she was like his worst enemy. His adversary. His arch nemesis. Everything he did, there was something wrong with it. And she would cause a conflict behind it. So it's like every day he's living with someone who's his opponent. Who's constantly at odds with him. Constantly battling him. Over some of the stupidest things you can imagine. Like Johnny Depp taking his boots off by himself one day. That caused a conflict. It's just anything the psychotic woman would get in her mind to go crazy about, she would. And no one would put her in check. And society has yet to put her in check. That's why we're at where we're at now. Because she's a rich, young, beautiful woman. She was allowed to get away with just anything you could possibly imagine. But I think where she messed up at is when she started accusing Johnny of being a bad father. She would accuse Johnny of being a bad father. And once again, he was always wrong. He was raising his kids wrong. He was doing the whole father thing all wrong. And it was weird to Johnny because, here's AH. She hadn't raised Johnny's kids. How would she know how to raise Johnny's kids? How would she know that Johnny was doing something wrong? So I think that her accusing him of being a bad father and all this stuff, I think that's what broke Johnny out of her spell. That's what broke Johnny out of her spell, is when she started bringing up the kids. And it would get so crazy to the point that she was clingy. And she wouldn't want Johnny Depp to be anywhere without her. So she would cut into the time that Johnny would usually be spending with his kids. So she would literally stop him from being with his kids. And then later on, she would turn that against him and throw it in his face. Like, oh, you're a bad father. You didn't see your kids yesterday. But when he tried to see his kids yesterday, she cried, threw a glass at him, and threatened to end herself. Like, that's just an example. I'm not saying that's what was said, but that's an example of how things went down when he would try to spend time with his kids. So she would actively stop him from spending time with his kids so he could spend time with her, and then throw it in his face and accuse him of being a bad father. And I think that's what broke him out of everything. And speaking of like separating himself, it got so bad to the point that when they went on vacation, he would have to book separate rooms. Separate rooms, not to flex, not just because he's rich. Separate rooms because he knew that he would have to have a place to hide. That's how bad their relationship is. Think of you and your relationship. You book a hotel, you book a suite, a nice Airbnb. You're going out with your significant other. The last thing you're thinking about is, oh, this vacation is going to be so bad that I need a whole nother hotel to get away from my significant other. If things are that bad, then why be with the person in the first place? But that's how bad things were for Johnny. Everywhere Johnny went, Johnny booked an extra room, an extra place for him to hide at, because he had to have a place to leave and hide from AH, because he knew that she was a ticking time bomb. There was never a good day. There was always going to be conflict. And it's funny to me that this whole trial up until now seems to be circled around the fact that Johnny does drugs and Johnny drinks. Yeah, it's been revealed that Amber would drink. She would do mushrooms, MDMA, cocaine. So if being drunk and high equals being violent, then can't we say the same for AH? Now, I don't think being drunk and high automatically equals like you being violent. I think there's a big disconnect there. Some people, yes, that's how they act. But a lot of people mellow out and get real chill. So I don't believe that. But we do have some quotes right here from Johnny Depp that I did want to share with you all. I stayed because I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to hurt anyone, especially Miss Heard. You see, he didn't want to fail in this marriage. He had a deep love for AH. I mean, to put up with this amount of madness, you have to have feelings for that person. And he didn't want to fail, and he didn't want to hurt anyone. It's that little boy who didn't want to feel that pain. And he's explaining why he would do drugs, why he would drink so much around AH, because he was trying to escape the pain that she was causing. I was more inspired by Miss Heard to reach out for a numbing agent because of the constant clashes. There wasn't a day when you didn't expect something to hit the fan. I had to distance my heart, from those verbal attacks to maintain me. And Amber would just tell him all types of crazy things like, your kids aren't proud of you. It's just, man, the amount of just verbal and mental torture and anguish that she put Johnny through is just crazy. In fact, I'm an open-minded person, but at this point, if you've heard yesterday's testimony and the beginning of today's testimony, and you're still on AH's side, then you're just being delusional. It seemed like pure hatred for me. If I stayed for that, I was sure it would escalate into pure violence, and it would. AH in her anger would strike out, a slap, a shove, throwing a TV remote at my head. All in all, it was a constant. This stuff was just a constant in their relationship. And it's extremely sad, but that pretty much wraps up what we've heard from Johnny so far. I mean, don't get me wrong, there was a lot more said, but just to sum things up, that's what's going on so far. And I've seen people complaining that this is long and drawn out and what have you. But like I said at the beginning of the video, I am totally here for it. I am totally here for Johnny finally being able to say what he needs to say. And I'm going to be here to listen, and I'm going to be here to amplify his message. And I want to know your thoughts and your opinions about this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video.